Rachel from Native Backyards here in San Antonio, Texas, and I thought I would show you a little bit of how my Texas native plant garden is doing here at the end of July. We've had a lot of rain this summer, probably more than I remember having the last few years, so everything's looking pretty green and healthy. Some things are doing particularly well, so I just want to point out some of my favorite plants in my garden. Starting with at the very front here, this pretty silvery ground cover is called Woolly Stomodia. It is very happy in this kind of part sun area, and I just love the color and texture of it. And then I've got some Mexican feathergrass behind it. I should say pretty much all the plants in my garden have been here for about 3 years now, some less, but it's really starting to fill out. Just like they say in the gardening world, the first year sleep, second year creep, third year leap, and I really feel like a lot of my plants are really taking off this year. This is another one of my favorites. It doesn't have as much blooms on it right now as it normally does, but this is a wonderfully drought-tolerant rock rose with a pretty kind of bright pink hibiscus blooms. And then all along the front of my garden bed, I have some delicate four-nerve daisy. It kind of goes in waves with its little flushes of yellow blooms. Then I'm going to take you around here. This area, I just haven't got much to get established. I'm trying to get some of that scarlet sage to fill in. This is a nice big Lindheimer muley grass that I put in last fall, so it's really going to fill in this space here eventually. I've got a lot of mealy blue sage and some of the cultivars. I think this is like an indigo spires. I've got several of those throughout my garden. They always have bees on them. Definitely I saw some carpenter bees and bumblebees out here today. And then I've got to show you this. This is my crazy passion vine right here. You can see the beautiful flowers on it, and this thing has just taken over. It started by climbing up this sculpture here, and now it's kind of spreading that way, taking over this lantana, and also totally cutting off my walking path here, but it's just so pretty, I hate to cut it back. But I noticed that once it gets to a certain size, I don't see a lot of Gulf fritillary butterflies on it. So this is the host plant for the Gulf fritillary. They lay their eggs on this plant, and you usually see a lot of caterpillars on it in the spring. I don't see a lot of caterpillars on this one right now, and I think that's why it's been able to grow so much. So I do need to cut this back because it starts to kind of climb over all the other plants. I'm going to come this way. Along the back side of my garden, I've got some Cenizo, some Texas sage, and then this crazy huge Texas lantana. I cannot believe how big this is getting. It is, I don't know, 10 feet tall. Unbelievable. But it's beautiful when it's covered in its yellow tubular blooms. And then if you look over here, what I've got is mostly some snake herb, which is, it blooms in the spring, so it doesn't have any blooms on it right now, but it has purple blooms in the spring. I've got a red yucca back here. This is interesting because it keeps getting bigger every year, but I've never had a bloom on it, and it's been here for 4 years. So I'm hoping this next spring I'll get my first bloom. And then I try to incorporate grasses throughout, so I've got some Gulf muley, some more Mexican feathergrass, and then along the front of my bed here I've got Zexminia, which is, it just has a handful of blooms on it right now, but sometimes it'll just be covered in yellow blooms. It's really pretty. And last but not least, I want to show you my awesome beautyberry plant. This is really taking off this year. It's covered in berries, and I just noticed that some of them are starting to turn purple. So in a couple weeks, this is going to look amazing. I'm going to show you this other garden bed that I've created along my fence line. I put this in 2 years and I keep adding plants to it. So these brown-eyed Susans I just added this spring, and they're so pretty. They just started blooming in the last week or so. I love how delicate the flowers are. And then I've filled it in with some mealy blue sage, Mexican feathergrass sprinkled in here as well. I've also got a lot of purple coneflower dotted along here. Rock rose, which again isn't really blooming as much as it usually is, kind of in between bloom periods. Some more of my fun purple coneflower. I just love that plant. I've got a one Turk's cap sprinkled in here. I think I used to have another one, but it didn't come back. And then as I go further along the fence, I've got some fall aster that'll be blooming here in a month or so, and some shrubby boneset, another fall bloomer. Is going to have white flowers on it. I have cedar sage throughout the bed, but it is a spring bloomer really for the most part. So this isn't blooming right now, but it has bright red flowers on it in the spring. my favorite inland sea oats. This is kind of a part sun, part shade area. So the sea oats do well here. And then lastly, I had to show you my fall obedient plant. This just started blooming and it is so pretty. So that's kind of the garden bed that I've just created in the last couple years. This used to be all Asiatic jasmine ground cover, so it's fun to see just a variety of plants and colorful blooms in this space. So thanks for taking a tour of my garden with me.